All right. Is my screen good? Can everyone see my screen? All right. Vimi's talk was very good. Now I'm nervous. Now I'm on the spot. All right. I'm also recovering from a cold, so that's why I sound like garbage. But hopefully it should be good. Oh, someone noticed my slide name. Thanks. All right. I think we're ready, right? Okay, I'm gonna start now. All right. The talk is called Marketing for Lemons, and lemons refers to all of you. So, this is a lemon proof guide to get you started on selling your game. And here's a great quote by Cody. I don't know what that means in the context of this talk, but that's what he said. All right. So, some of you, well, most of you probably know me, but in case you don't know me, I'm a game dev, I'm a graphic designer, and most importantly, I'm broke. That's the most important part. I work on a game called I Just Want to Be Single. It's a dating sim. It's not out yet, but I've had pretty good success on marketing it. We just finished a Kickstarter and successfully raised $70,000 USD, almost tripling our base goal. And yeah, we've got a lot of numbers here, and it's purely here to assert my dominance. No, I'm just kidding. So what's the purpose of this talk? Well, it's to understand the ins and outs of marketing, and this talk is mostly for beginners, but veterans of marketing can learn something too. I think it'll at least, hopefully, um, establish or reinforce some ideas you have about marketing and maybe even help you out in some way. So there's five parts to this talk. We need to understand what is marketing, why we should do marketing, when to do marketing, how to do it, and where to do it. And we're all gonna be answering all of these questions in this talk. So first of all, let's set up some ground rules, right? So just so we're on the same page. Um, your game is a product, right? And now that sounds like a really cold terminology. Like it's not like trying to make money. Well, I mean, most of us are trying to like make a game, and the goal isn't really. Most of the time, it's really not to make money. Most of the time, it's really for us to have other people play our game. So that's why um, the point is your game is a product, even if it's free. Okay, so success doesn't have to be about money. It's not financial. It's not tied to money, and that's why marketing is still important, even if your game is free. And because we still want people to play our game, right? And that's why we need to market it. So those are the ground rules. So to understand what marketing is, we have to talk about what marketing isn't, right? So I'm just going to clear up some misconceptions here right now, and maybe some of you have them. Marketing is not you trying to trick people into giving you free money, and it's not an evil deed where you sacrifice all your integrity as an artist or a game dev. That's not what it is, okay? Marketing is not it's not that. Also, marketing isn't shouting buy my game into the void and then feeling miserable about it. That's an illustration of how a lot of people feel about marketing. Those are the tears of agony. But that's not what marketing is, all right? Or at least it's not a very good representation of marketing. So, what is marketing? All right. What is marketing? Well, simply put, it's informing people of your product by presentation. Um, Now that's a very complicated way of saying, "Hey, my game exists," and that's really the simplest point of what is marketing. So why do we need to do that? Why do we need to say my game exists? Right? That just sounds kind of stupid. Well, let's imagine this, right? Let's put a hypothetical situation. You're a game dev and you make games, obviously. And you know, you're making your game and you finished your game and it's really great. Like amazing, good job. And I'm not being sarcastic cuz making games is really hard. I would know. Um, but the thing is, making a game is one thing, but the other part is we want people to play the game, right? Other than ourselves. That's I think what I mentioned before is most of us want other people to play our game. That's why we make games, right? That's why we create things as an artist. But you'll probably know very soon if you've tried this before that your friends and family are kind of obligated to play your game. So it's not really much of a challenge to get them to play it. And well, that's fine and good. And, you might be happy with that, but it's not as satisfying as having someone you don't know, a complete stranger playing your game and, giving you a genuine compliment. That's like one of the best feelings in the world. And that's what, we try to strive for, right? But here's the thing, right? Getting a complete stranger to play your game is really difficult. Like, it's actually really challenging because you most of the time asking them doesn't work. It's actually really difficult. I tried. So that's why we need to do marketing. And I know some of you are gonna think, hey, well, why don't you just make a really good game and people will just spread it through word of mouth? Well, you'd think that, right? And let's put that to the test. Let's put that as a theory. Hypothetically, let's assume your game is the best game ever, right? It's literally the best game ever, and you made that game and it exists, right? But here's the thing, right? Other people also make games, and there's a lot of them, and it's really difficult for someone to know that your game is the best game ever. And it's you can't really expect the average person to browse through all these games, find your game specifically, and then give it a try. It's just really difficult, and you can't expect an average person to do that unless you're just relying on luck or something. um, and this isn't just me making a theory or hypothesizing. It's actually, backed up by numbers. Like, there's so many games on the internet, and every day there are more new games that are put on the platform. As you can see, there's 15,000 on itch, there's 5,000 on Steam, and there's way more platforms than just those two. The average person is not going to play all those games. They're not even going to try even 10% of those games. So how do you make how can you expect someone to play specifically yours, right? It's just impossible. And lastly, to put this point, the nail in the coffin of this point is even the most popular and the best games still need to do marketing. That's just how it is. That's just a representation of, how it works. All right, so now we understand why we need to do marketing. And to put it in a nutshell, there will always be someone that will like your game, but the problem is they don't know your game exists, or at least not yet, unless you tell them, right? This goes back to the first part of the talk. What is marketing? You're just saying, hey, my game exists, and this is why we do marketing. All right. Um, Now, here's the part where you might think to yourself, okay, fine, I'll mark it, but I'll do it later, right? But there's a problem with that. And you might have several reasons. You might think to yourself, well, I don't have enough content, or I want to learn social media first, or I'm too nervous to post, or my project isn't ready to show yet. But if you are thinking of these thoughts, then you are this guy, all right? You don't want to be this guy. I'm just kidding. Well, but seriously, you are this guy. Okay, don't do that. Okay, so the next part is, when do I market then? If it's not later, right? When is it? Well, if you ask most people who do marketing, professionals or veterans, or just people who with experience, they'll usually say ASAP, and that stands for as soon as possible. But that doesn't really emphasize on what their actual meaning behind that word or phrase, rather. And they don't actually mean as soon as possible. They mean as soon as literally possible. I don't mean like tomorrow. I mean like soon as freaking possible. Okay. And not just even right now. It's literally like, you know, it's not right now. It's before you even start making a game. That's when you should be thinking of marketing. And obviously, you can't. It's difficult to market when something doesn't exist, right? You're basically selling an idea, but that's why the key word here is thinking of marketing, right? And you need to understand that when you start a game or start a project, it's a very big commitment, and you can't. Well, it gets difficult to change things the more and more you progress. And the easiest time to change things is before you even start, because you haven't committed to anything yet, right? And that's what I did for my talk. I had a ton of ideas and I wanted to do a ton of stuff. But this one time I pitched an idea to some of my friends here in Dev Talk. Um, it was an idea about a anti-dating sim and how the protagonist doesn't want to date anyone. And it was met with pretty good reception. People really liked the idea. And I could tell, right? It wasn't just like, haha, that's funny. People actually wanted to see that idea come into fruition. Um, and I could tell because even people I didn't know personally, like people who aren't my friends, liked the idea. And that was really important to get that early kind of feedback. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, how do I come up with a good idea? What if my idea isn't as cool? Well, here's a really crudely made graph. Basically, you want to think of something that's both familiar and novel, right? So the x-axis on the bottom here represents familiarity, and the y-axis on the left here says novelty. That's really difficult to read, I know. But basically, you want to keep a nice balance between these two axes to get a really cool idea, because if your idea is too familiar, it's kind of boring. And if it's too novel or unique, it's just kind of weird. And not that, you can't have a really unique idea, or you can't make a game that's, you know, generally widely like common, but the best kinds of ideas are a really good mix between these two. The next part is, you have to have a very clear target audience with your idea. And what I mean by that is, you are having a specific idea of who is going to play your game. And here you can see, I took a screenshot of this Reddit post from the Aromantic subreddit. And they really like this idea of this game, which is an anti-dating sim, except you don't date people, right? Romantic people are people who don't really share romantic feelings with other people, so they thought this idea was pretty funny. And as you can see, this is also a cross post with the subreddit Actual Lesbians. And yeah, that is a real sub, by the way. And this game is also a Yuri or um, uh, girl love type of game, so they also liked it as well. And so you can see that this game very specifically targets certain types of people, right? And you can even see from the tagline. Um, but this also doesn't just include the main idea. You can also put a lot of features with marketability in mind. So I put in this feature in the game called VTuber mode. And what this does is basically any VTuber who plays the game has the option to hide the main character sprite, and they can put their own VTuber avatar in place. And that makes it so it looks like the VTuber avatar is the character in the story. And you can see how it's integrated with the game, and it gives you a really cool immersive experience. And that was a huge, hook for VTubers who, normally don't even play visual novels. And that led to a lot of VTubers playing the game. And another example of adding features with marketability in mind is I added this a reference to a popular YouTuber in my game, and I wasn't really expecting him to play it, but it was just a really quick addition to the game. It didn't cost me anything. Didn't take a lot of time. Just put it in the last few minutes of the game, like in 5 minutes. And then when he did eventually play it, which I didn't expect, by the way, people on the YouTube channel were like really excited. They really liked the fact that I added a feature or an Easter egg that references him, and that was like another point of where people shared the game around and said, "Hey, this game's pretty cool. It has this Easter egg of a YouTuber I like." Um, sorry, let me get a drink of water. All right. So that was a lot of ideas, but basically, design your game with your audience in mind. You want to target parts of your idea to specific people, and you want to have them in mind when you make your game. Another thing is don't put too much emphasis on the idea. Obviously, having a good idea is important, but so is execution. If you have the best idea in the world, but you can't execute it, it doesn't mean anything. So you need to be able to make sure that you can actually create something with that idea. Um, because otherwise, you're just, you're kind of false advertising, right? If you can't, um, make a game that is as good as you promised, then that's just gonna lead into a disappointment. Um, but how do you know if you're gonna execute well on your idea, even if you do have a good idea? Well, there's some things that you can make sure that you can do. Do research before planning, lower your minutes, scope realistically, and don't commit before you know what you're getting yourself into. And I see a lot of new devs do this. They just think they can do something when they actually can't. You need to build skills and you need to have experience in making things before you can actually promise yourself and other people that you can do things. Basically, don't make an RPG visual novel hybrid and then assume you can just work on it for several years. That's not gonna work. Don't do that. Yeah. So, in order to not do that, organize and plan your development timeline, workload, cost, etc., and use spreadsheets, use Excel, use Google Sheets, and put deadlines on yourself. That last one is really important. Put deadlines on yourself. That's really really important because when you put a deadline on yourself, that's a really great way to know how your what your limits are and how to scope well. And that's why game jams are really great for building skills like cooperation, teamwork, scoping, experience, finishing projects. That's really important. Taking feedback, giving feedback. That's really important. Presentation, everything. It's game jams are really great. Do game jams. Basically, if you're not confident in your skill, start small, start fast, and finish. Finishing is very important. Finishing is arguably more important than starting. All right. So those are all the things that you need to keep in mind when you're designing with marketability. How to market finally. All right. So how do you market your game? Well, you need to have a strong hook. You need to have a strong hook. Well, what is a hook? Well, a hook is the thing you say to people that becomes the reason they play your game, right? Usually, it comes in the form of a tagline or a short script description, or or maybe even the title, right? The title can be a reason someone can play the game. If you want a basic hook formula, here's one for you: genre plus unique player interaction. And what unique player interaction means is basically what the player does in the game. So what do they do? Um, let's make an example. My game. My game is a dating sim where you don't date people, right? That's the unique part. Yeah, it wouldn't be very exciting if my hook was, hey, it's a dating sim where you date people. Like, duh, that's kind of obvious, right? So that's why it's a unique, it has to be a unique player interaction. And maybe your game doesn't have like a unique gameplay element. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be gameplay. It can be story too, right? It can work on a narrative level. Maybe you're doing a mystery thriller game where you investigate the murder of work your work office coworker. That can be fine too. This is the basic formula. My game is a genre or a dating sim where you don't date people. It's very simple. It doesn't have to be in this specific formula. You can do other stuff as well, but this is just a really great example. And this comes back to the idea of having an idea of being that's both novel and familiar, right? Basically, your genre is the thing that's familiar, hopefully, and your unique player interaction is kind of the twist to the game. It signifies what's unique about your game, and it tells people why they should play your game instead of other games in the same genre. All right. So branding, aka presentation. Let's say you have a great hook. Now you need to work on the presentation because you need to be able to present your ideas to other people in a effective manner. The presentation of our studio, for example, is we have a motto. It says at the bottom there, we make cute, fun, and inclusive games. And that's really the tone or the branding image we're going for. Basically, we make light-hearted, fun, cute, and inclusive games, just like it says. Really obvious, and you kind of know what to expect already, right? Um, Even you also have to work on presentation in terms of what posts you make or what content you upload. And mine, for example, is infamously memes because I prefer to be approachable, relatable, and I'm a shit poster. That's how it is. But don't worry, you don't have to do this. Don't feel pressured to make memes. You don't have to make memes, all right? That's not the only way to present yourself, right? If you have a game that's not suitable for that type of image, You can do other stuff too. For example, this is a game that I really like. I've worked with this person before, and they're making a game that is a more serious game. It's a mystery thriller, kind of horror type of game. And it's kind of like supposed to be like Danganronpa and games like that. And I think that one of the inspirations is Death Note, actually, which is really great. You should watch Death Note. But this kind of presentation and brand image totally works too. Like being a more serious, being I want you if you want to be more professional, you want to appear more legit. That's totally fine too. You do what works for you. Um, but what the main idea of having a specific type of brand image or presentation style is that you want to share what a mood or emotions that your project has. Basically, you're telling them how it feels, right? And this is very important because people will see your game and they don't know how to feel about it. Basically, they won't know if it's good or not, and they won't know if they enjoy it or not. And your brand image and your presentation is going to signify, hey, this is what it's going to feel like to play my game. This is what it's going to feel like to enjoy my product. And it's kind of the same idea when you go into a supermarket and there's like free samples of food in the corner somewhere, and then you take some and you're like, hey, this isn't so bad. Maybe I'll buy a sandwich or something. Same thing. You're just giving a taste of how it's going to feel like when they are actually playing your game. All right. So you got your hook, you've got your brand image down or your presentation. Now what do? You just sit with no followers and just wait for people to buy your game? No. The best way to grow or to gain an audience, find an audience, um, post content. You gotta post content, right? And this is a really big, hard pill to swallow, and most people are not ready to accept this, but marketers are content creators. I'm sorry, this is a hard truth for some of y'all. But yeah, you are a content creator now. And what type of content is the best type of content to post? Valuable content. Valuable content, right? And you might be wondering, well, what do you mean valuable content? What is unvaluable content? How can content be valuable, right? Well, remember how I said when marketing isn't shouting buy my game into the void and feeling miserable about it? That's not very valuable because you're not really telling people about your game. You're not really um, reinforcing the idea of your game. You're not really even, trying to convince them to like your product. You're just saying, buy my game. That's not how it works. That's not very valuable. People don't like that. So, how do you make your content valuable? Well, there's three ways, and they're not mutually exclusive. They can be one or all of them. But your content has to be educational, informational, or entertaining, or emotional. It can be all three, or just one of them. It can be any of them. What emotional means, it just basically means, hey, maybe it moves you, right? Maybe it's just an art piece. It doesn't matter. And people follow you for valuable content because um, going back to the food sample idea earlier, if people like your content, they're gonna follow you. They'll be convinced that hey, what you make is great, and they're gonna try out things that you bring on the table for new. And for example, like if you grow your audience, and then they're gonna be very willing to try and play your game and buy your game, even if they haven't tried it, even if you haven't sold them on your game at all. They will be way more willing to buy your game, play your game, if you grow followers organically. Now, actually posting content is way difficult than making theories, right? But if you follow the rules I said mentioned earlier. It has to be valuable, and it can be either through three ways. It can be informational, educational, or it can be entertaining, or like memes, right? Or you want to say something that's, informative, or you want to make something that's emotional, right? It moves them. So you can see examples of all three here. And you can mix and match, and you can do hybrid posts, and you can do all of that stuff. And there's really no limits at all. You can do whatever you want in terms of creativity. And if you still can't even think of anything to post, that's fine too. Just copy other people. You know, that's completely fine. Don't actually copy the literal content, just change it up so it doesn't look like you copied. And that's totally fine. Like, I'm not being sarcastic at all. Um, Still worried about your posts? Oh, yeah, this is a meme I got. Too late now. Anyway, still worried about your posts? Learn basic graphic design. It really, really helps. Graphic design goes a long way. Graphic design is one of those core skills like marketing and business that everyone should learn. It's really helpful. And keep your ideas basic. Like, don't make it overcomplicated. Don't overcomplicate it. Just keep it basic. All right. So you're a content creator now. When you actually talk about the game, right? Well, the best way to talk about your game is CTAs and milestones, or both. Both is fine. So, what is a CTA? Well, CTA stands for call to action, and it's basically you saying, hey, buy my game. But I know I said don't do that, but what I meant by that is don't do that before or without posting valuable content. You need to provide value first. And then you can say, hey, buy my game. And CTAs come in the form of many, many different types of ways you can do it. And one of the ways you can do it is just put it parallel or inside the post of the content you're doing. Like, for example, this is just a video, a couple of videos, and there's like some disclaimers at the bottom. Hey, buy my game, and that's one form of CTA. Another form of CTA is in the post, like, hey, this is my game. And then you can just post in the comments or outside of the main body of the post, hey, by the way, the name of this game is this. And, that's one way to provide content, valuable content, and also show your game at the same time. Another way is to use milestones as CTAs. And milestones could be anything. It could be an announcement. It could be, a really big update. It could be, a big piece of information you want to share. Basically anything that's really notable. And you can just use that as a way to, talk about your game directly. All right. So here's some minor details that are probably glossed over and you have some questions about. How much should I post and what times? And those are very important questions, and the answer is any, as long as it's consistent, right? Honestly, it really doesn't matter how much you post or what time you post, as long as it's consistent. Really make sure you post consistently. This is very important. You could post once a week, you could post daily, you could post 3 times a day, it doesn't matter. You could post at 9 a.m. or you could post at 2 p.m., it doesn't matter. It needs to be consistent. It has to be consistent because otherwise people are just gonna lose interest and they're not gonna be able to keep track of what you're doing. That is more important than when and how much. But keep it manageable. Schedule posts. Plan your content way before you actually need to do it. Don't just, improv, do posts on the daily basis. And it's okay to reuse content. That's totally fine. It's okay to copy content. Just make sure you change it a little bit. And don't worry about each post. Don't torture yourself because, posts are relatively low stakes. If it doesn't do well, who cares? It's just one post. You can make more. That's fine. All right. So, last part of the talk, where to market. Well, there's many different types of platforms, and there's a lot of ways to also market. But basically, you just want to use the ones that fit you, but make sure to experiment first to make sure they even fit you in the first place. I tried pretty much every platform you can think of: Reddit, Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, YouTube. Um, and I found out that TikTok works really well for me because I'm really good with video content, apparently. Well, I mean, I knew that, but I didn't want to try TikTok for a very long time because TikTok doesn't have the best reputation. And so I was really hesitant. But when I tried it, it worked out really great for me. So just stick what's best for you. And it could be anything, right? Like I said, TikTok works for me because I really like video content. But if you hate video content or you're not good with video content, don't force yourself to use it. Just use something else, right? You're more focused or you prefer blog type of content, Tumblr is fine. You can use Reddit, you can use Twitter, that's all fine. If you really like image based content, you can use Instagram. And if you like videos, TikTok and YouTube is for you. And next thing is events. Events are really important to not only grow as a developer, but it's also a really great way to show your project around. And it's really a really easy and effective way for people to know about your game and get visibility. There's tons of game events going on all around, every time, all year. Check Twitter, check your communities, check Steam, check your platforms. There's always an event, and you can always join one. Those are really effective. All right, so final part of the talk. Some small pieces of advice that I couldn't fit in the other parts. Limit yourself to what you can do, but don't spread yourself too thin. And what that means is basically don't try to use all platforms all at once. Just pick the ones you're good at, and don't try to do every type of post or too many posts than you need to. Just stick to what you can manage. That's very important because, again, consistency is one of the most important parts of posting content. But do give it a fair chance, right? Like I said, I was really hesitant to try TikTok. I'm really glad I did try it. And, give it a try. Give it a fair try. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But you have to actually make sure it's not working first before you even, ring the bell. Don't sweat the numbers. I see a lot of people stress out about this, and it's really uncomfortable watching people have a breakdown over like a couple of likes. And I'm not saying that to bully people because I get more likes or anything. I just mean if you put that much mental if you put that many eggs in your basket, you're never going to be able to post consistently or efficiently. You're just setting yourself up for disappointment, right? Not every post is important. Some are just throwaway. Sometimes you just don't feel like making a good post. Sometimes you make a really good post and it doesn't do well, and that just happens. That's normal. Don't get discouraged. Growth is exponential. It's supposed to be slow in the beginning, but it picks up. And don't be surprised when you're not growing in the first few months. Maybe it doesn't happen for a really, really long time, but it will happen. Don't worry about it. If you're really interested in, statistics or your analytics, just look at the trends, not the direct numbers, because the direct numbers don't matter too much, right? Honestly, they don't matter. as long as you're growing at a consistent pace, doesn't matter if it's slow, you're still growing, and that's the goal. And lastly, have fun, because at the end of the day, we're marketing because we want to share our passion and enthusiasm as game developers with other people, and that's the most important thing. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. That was a really long talk. I think I finished a little bit faster than I was supposed to, but here's a TLDR screen. In case you missed anything, here's the most important parts of the talk if you want to keep anything. All right, I'm ready for questions now.
Yeah, that was great. If anyone has any questions, feel free to post them in the chat, and we can read them out and answer them for you.
All right. Brave Turtle asks, "What are your thoughts on Patreon?" Um, very sorry, but I don't use Patreon, so I actually don't know. Sorry, but I know a lot of people use it with great effect, so it's probably good. Cody asks, "What social media platform has given you the most success?" Well, TikTok. How do I engage with it? I don't know what you mean exactly. I post daily, and I read comments. I reply to comments as much as I can, and that's about it. What point, Claybrick asks, "What point in the project would you consider it to be stable enough to begin advertising for a project? For example, advertising material being created for a character you highly suspect will be scope knifed out of the game." Well, I would say don't worry about it too much. Like I said, the main goal is growth, and you're really trying to establish your presence on the platform. Um, I think people are way too worried about things that don't really matter when they say things like, "Hey, it's the project isn't ready to reveal," or things aren't too developed enough, or they don't think it's not impressive enough to show. Just honestly, don't worry about it. Just post as soon as you can, and that's not only gonna help you build experience and help you learn how to do marketing and content. Um, uh, Secondly, it just doesn't really matter that much. Um, Summer asks, "Did you spend whole 6 months studying marketing and preparing before launching this Kickstarter? What tools did you use specifically for learning?" Um, I did spend 6 months marketing and preparing before the launch Kickstarter. Um, and what tools did I use for learning? I can post a very good resource text file that I prepared for this talk, actually. I'm going to post it in chat right now. Here you go. And you can download that. I'm going to bring up the screen again. All right. Oishi asks, "Where can we learn graphic design? Is there any online classes or books you recommend I can read?" Just YouTube it. Just Google it. Those are your best resources. You can find tons of great free resources. You don't need to pay for lessons. There's lots of stuff on YouTube. I learned everything from YouTube. Mm. Bayu asks, "I've attempted posts asking for follower audience input with little or no engagement. Do you have an estimate on when those styles posts begin to see success?" I think in general those don't really do too well, even when I do them. And you're not really gonna get a lot of great, great data analysis points if you're trying to get any kind of data. If you're just trying to do it for engagement, I would say give people an incentive, right? Give people an incentive, like say, "Hey, you're gonna decide what happens in this game. and here's the options you have. Or you can say, hey, if you let's say you can make for example, you can make a contest, right? You can make an art contest, and hey, that's going to be, we're going to have a reward. Maybe you get one game key on Steam for the winner, and that's a really great way to encourage people to engage with your content. Question from Elise: have you paid for any advertisement? No, I have not paid for any type of advertising at all. I've literally never done paid ads at all. I remember, I think they can be effective, but I've never personally done it. So yeah. Jan asks, how many free games should you make before launching your first Kickstarter? There isn't really a specific number. Just you should do a Kickstarter when you feel confident that you can make one. And if you're not, how do you know if you're confident? Well, I mean, you need a lot of experience. All right, Chalet, or I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. Chalet asks, let's say you have two projects. One's finished and the other one is in development. Which one should I focus on for marketing? You should probably focus on that's kind of difficult, right? Because we were also in a similar situation. We were developing the zombie game, and we were just finished it, and we also worked on we're working on the single dating game. And I think it's really difficult to do both unless you're really big. So I think you're on the right track on focusing on one of them. But if you had to focus on one of them, I guess it's really up to you which one you prioritize and which one's more important. I think it's way harder to market a finished game compared to an unfinished game, because really marketing is all about raising awareness about a product that isn't hasn't done the big reveal yet, and it's way less effective. And it depends. There's caveats, there's circumstances, but I would say the answer is just do what you prioritize. Coda asks, how do you determine your branding and audience across socials? And if you have any resources or templates, could you share? Well, like I said in the branding section of the talk, you should really understand your audience first, right? Who's your audience and who are you making content for? What type of content are you making? And those little things like the hook, the genre, the type of audience you are targeting, those are really gonna establish the framework of your branding. Are you targeting kids? Are you targeting adults? Are you targeting fans of a specific genre? Those genres have fans of those genres, or those things have specific expectations, right? If you have, for example, if you're an otome fan, you expect otomes to work in a certain way. You expect them to look in a certain way, right? And you have to somewhat meet those expectations, and that's gonna help you establish your branding. Damus asks, if a studio has established brand but has an idea for a game that is very different from their studio's established brand, should they still develop the game? If so, how would they market it, and how do you think that the studio's brand will have an effect on how the game is received? That's a very good question. I would say it's very possible for you to make different games, even though if your studio focuses on one thing. I think branding and image presentation isn't necessarily exclusive to how you present your studio. It can be contained within how you present that product or project, right? You can still do simultaneous marketing for different projects, and One project doesn't have to be, all of your projects don't have to be the same style, but it would definitely help if you are consistent because people know what to expect and they won't be disappointed and they won't be alienated. Question for Claybreak: how valuable is interacting with other game developers in terms of getting your product out there? I would say it's how valuable is it? I think you should try to connect with your fellow devs because you can learn a lot and you can make a lot of good connections. Like you can, for example, a lot of the devs I met helped me with a lot of problems in development, but I don't think they're really going to help you in terms of marketing. I would say it's more for the development side. It's going to be useful for developing your game, but I don't think it's going to be useful for marketing unless they have some connections with marketing agencies or publishers or something like that. But I wouldn't really say it's essential or anything. I think it's a good thing to get you started, right? Those fellow devs are going to be your first followers for sure, definitely. Question for Elise: did you feel like you wasted time or made any mistakes in your theory on marketing, or is there anything you wished you'd done differently? I would say one of the biggest regrets I have is um promising certain things and not being able to deliver them. Don't make promises you can't keep. Really, you really have to be sure you can keep your promises before you make them. And also don't feel obligated to owe anyone, anything. You don't owe anyone anything, right? If they ask you to add something to your game, you can just say no, and that's it. All right, I think that's most of the questions. Also, my throat is getting a little dry, so I'm gonna pass it over to you, Nai.
All right, thank you very much. This was fantastic, guys. Thank you, Shino. Thank you, Vimy, and thank you, M, for your very, very excellent talks. And also, everyone listening, thank you for attending our very first Dev Talks. This was incredible. I loved every minute of it, and I hope you did too. I'm wrapping up the recording in just a moment, and I will hopefully have that, cleaned up and cut out and sent out pretty soon. So if you're looking forward to that, that'll be there pretty soon. Um, Once again, if you are new to Dev Talk, welcome, and I hope you guys stick around. We do things year round, and ideally, we're going to be doing plenty more of these in the future with different talks, with different subjects, and different. Make sure you add closed. Thank you for reminding me, Shelly. I will go back and add closed captions. That's gonna take me some time. Oh God. Okay, that's fine. Right. So anyway, like I was saying though, we do stuff year round. So if you are interested in more things to come, jams, other speaking events, do stick around. And as far as everything else goes, I think that's it for us. I really hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned in the announcements channel and on our Twitter for more information about upcoming events. Have a great day, guys.